I have on a guest you guys already know, Tommy Waller, a great friend of mine, and former Force Recon commander and president of the Center for Security Policy. And I couldn't think of a better person to come on and talk about some of these things, particularly implications on the back end of it. What do you think I mean, this is kind of your expertise about, the homeland. What do you think the implications of this are on the homeland when we've coming out of 4 years of open borders? We know that bad actors made it in the United States. You have Hamas, Hezbollah, potentially even Al Qaeda in the United States that may use this as a reason for a terror attack or a something on a critical infrastructure.
Right. Well, look, yeah, wide open border. We know during the Biden administration that there were actual Hezbollah operatives captured coming across the border, and that the U.S. federal government under Biden's leadership let them go. The excuse was that they didn't want to detain them and have them risk catching COVID. Is part of what we were told at the time. So yeah, there are jihadists here from Hezbollah, Hamas, Al Qaeda. I mean, just about every brand of jihad terrorism that are in this country. And so, but I guess the thing to know about that is unless they, prayerfully have a change of heart in what they believe, their orientation is going to be hostile to the United States of America and the freedoms that we enjoy. Their goals are going to be to do us harm. Now, many of these Hezbollah cells over many years, they're not necessarily like, you think of like the quote sleeper cell. You hear these words like sleeper cell, like just this group of terrorists that are just laying low and remaining undetected and blending in with the civilian population until they're maybe given some order to attack. I mean, the Hezbollah cells in the United States and the Western hemisphere, a lot of times are very active and overt, doing fundraising, logistics, buying and purchasing assets and sending them over back to their allies in the Middle East to use, whether it be weapon systems, ammunition, night vision, and then conducting very significant influence operations, and even getting American companies to invest in industry and businesses that can support the Iranian regime. I mean, Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Yet you have had over the years state pension systems. So like these large, pension systems that a state like, say, California or Iowa or Louisiana or Texas has for its state employees, these massive amounts of money investing in Iranian companies. And in fact, that's one of the things our Center for Security Policy has done over the years. It was called the Divest Terror Initiative, to help states understand, not to be investing in these companies that are basically funding terrorism. So when it comes to the domestic front, we already have a whole bunch of Iranian, people who are favorable to Iran and to jihad terrorism in our country, doing everything from fundraising to influence operations to potentially planning attacks. And Chad, you asked about our critical infrastructure. That's really the way that they could do the most damage, is rather than just focusing on, some soft targets and trying to create, a lot of casualties and headlines, is a thoughtful attack on the infrastructures that we depend on for modern life, right? Which is what you and I talked about on both of our previous episodes at the Resilience Show, which is why we need to make our infrastructure more resilient and why the American people need to be better prepared for attacks on the infrastructures that we depend on.
Yeah, I know you and I have both worked together on not just on the podcast, but and by the way, if you haven't listened to listeners, go back and listen to the previous episodes that Tommy and I did. But we've also kind of worked in Washington, D.C. to kind of push the new administration to strengthen our infrastructure and make some policy decisions on infrastructure. Not everyone's going to be involved at the policy level. What could everyday Americans be doing to protect themselves on an individual basis and their families when it comes to the threat against our infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, look, just think about how every one of our infrastructures, whether it's communications, water, wastewater, it all depends on electricity, which is part of the reason why our nonprofit Center for Security Policy has been focused on the electric grid. So I think you just, from a mindset perspective, start to imagine life without electricity and then without the things that you would tie to it, and then begin the process of planning for being able to go without power for however long duration you can. I mean, every little step is going to be helpful, right? It's often said that our nation's, anywhere from 5 to 9 meals away from complete chaos, whether, that's 2 to 3 days. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that when you look at previous disasters, whether it's Hurricane Katrina or, the Great Northeast Blackout in 2003. When the lights go out, it quickly turns into a very bad situation. So what people can do is to prepare themselves individually, at the family, and at the community level. One of the things our nonprofit does is threat briefings for emergency managers, law enforcement, and local elected officials to make them aware of this, and then start to plug them into some of the solutions that they can use to become better prepared. So case in point, we on our website, if you go centerforsecuritypolicy.org, click on the infrastructure security tab, you'll see various reports out there. Some, for example, directed towards the state of Texas that has its own grid, some of the steps we recommend for that state, county level recommendations. There's a county, Waldo County, Maine, where the emergency manager took a lot of steps to begin preparing at the county level for a loss of electricity. And so what we do is we document those steps and then produce reports that other emergency managers can then review and decide to take similar action. So it's really both top down and bottom up. So Chad, I'm really grateful for you and the types of awesome connections that you have when we talk about, a top down emphasis with members of the Trump administration being able to provide our recommendations to them from the top down, but also the bottom up. We've got to do it from the individual, family level, becoming more resilient, and then the community and the state level.
I want to ask two more things that just to kind of dispel. I mean, because like I said, you turn on it, you get on social media, you're gonna see all kind of stuff on social media. You get on the news, you're gonna have talking heads from all kind of opinions. Two things that people are kind of pointing to in this that I just don't buy. One is that this administration recklessly aligned with Israel at all costs to support Israel and not putting America first. Is how accurate or inaccurate would that accusation be?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's this narrative, and I've seen it too, where it's almost as though they accuse President Trump or the current U.S. administration as being like, controlled by, or that somehow the Israeli government is puppeteering America in a way to cause us to take these actions. I don't think that's the case based on when you look again at Iran's behavior, what they've said they want to do, the type of harm that they've caused, Americans throughout the history since 1979 until now of the Islamic, government there. So I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think President Trump is his own man. I don't think that it's a situation where he's somehow, being controlled or unduly influenced by Prime Minister Netanyahu. I would also say that, no government's perfect, and none of us are perfect. You and I, we're all flawed, right? And so it's not like the Israeli government is perfect. It's not like the Israeli intel community doesn't have its own skeletons in the closet. I'm sure, just like many of the institutions that we have in our own country. We face a lot of the same challenges where you have, whether it's like this, kind of socialist pushing woke mindset, whatever you want to call it, that pervades the thinking in U.S. bureaucracies, even including the U.S. military that we've seen. Same thing in Israel. You see that too, right? So you're talking about two imperfect countries with two imperfect governments, but there is one thing that's pretty clear, and that is that the regime that was just struck, that the nuclear program that was attacked, was the means by which that regime could achieve what it consistently said it wants to do. And I think that that's what people need to remember is you listen to the enemy. I mean, if the enemy says they're going to do something, obviously there could be deception operations going on, but you start, when it comes to planning for your own defense, you start with the enemy's intentions and capabilities. And the Iranians made their intentions very clear. And what I believe is that the capabilities, it became clear that they were about to have the capability And that's why President Trump acted, not because we were some puppet of the Israelis.
Yeah, very well said, and I think that kind of goes to my next thing, and the other accusation is, and look, I hate war. I mean, I know you hate war. Anybody who's been to war hates war, and one of the things I do hate historically in America is the military-industrial complex of America and those who the neocons in DC who profiteer off of the cost of lives around the world, and so there's a lot of accusations that this would be the military industrial complex and neocons in DC whispering in the ear of President Trump. And I just don't see that as this. I think he's exactly right. We had a enemy who made threats and established a position against the United States. We offered them to back down, and then they showed the means and capability to execute on those. And so I personally do not believe, as much as I stand against the military industrial complex, that that's what this was. In fact, I think the fact that we did a strategic strike, it actually goes into President Trump's stance against the military industrial complex, that we're not talking about, boots on the ground or sustained war. This is kind of what the campaign that President Trump and talked about, and the implementation of Pete Hegseth to have a military with high capability, violent, a clear mission, and when they executed that mission, it would be done violently, ferociously, and with a clear strategy. And I believe that's what we have seen.
Yeah, look, I also concur that it doesn't appear to me that this was some type of attack just motivated by profiteering, like war profiteering. And I absolutely get that the righteous anger and disgust with the idea of war profiteering, right? To be motivated to produce something and to get a country involved in a conflict for profit is really terrible morally. At the same time, I think it's important for us to think about what we just saw with this precision strike. It was only able to be accomplished because of a certain amount of military industrial strength, right? Whether you want to term, and I think if we were talking about the term military industrial complex and what Eisenhower warned about, let's categorize that as war profiteering. On the other hand, the United States of America having a robust military industry, the capability for innovation that can be leveraged on the battlefield, and the capability to produce and employ weapon systems to devastate our adversaries is actually quite important. So you think about, those sevens, B-2 stealth bombers. I mean, that was a military industry that created that. The munitions, I mean, the reason why Israel couldn't do it alone is they didn't have these kind of munitions. So I think it's kind of a balance of peace through strength is a method by which you can deter adversaries from harming us because they're fearful of what we can do to them in terms of kinetic warfare, and that relies on a certain amount of military industry. It's also important for us to remember that when it comes to military industry, some of our adversaries right now are far outpacing us. Russia's ability to produce munitions. We should have a report on this soon. Our senior economist Andrei Ilarionov, who actually previously worked for Vladimir Putin. I mean, he didn't want to. It's an amazing story. We need to have him on your show one day, the Resilient podcast, Chad, because he understands the mindset of Vladimir Putin. He pays close attention to both the economic dimensions and the military industrial dimensions of the Russian Federation. And right now, their military industrial complex, it can produce a lot more than we can when it comes to just raw munitions. China, same thing, shipbuilding industry, all these different industries. And so I think what we need to be kind of careful of is the balance of making sure that we're not involved in that our political leadership is not pushing us into conflict for war profiteering, but that they actually also have a very sober and realistic view of the world and what our adversaries can do, and make proper decisions on how we can set our warriors up for success, so that when they are called upon to face the enemy on the battlefield, that they have the tools that they need to do exactly what just happened. This strike was very impressive, and it showed a lot of capability that, frankly, I'm glad we had.
Yeah, so, that's such a good point. Yeah, such a good point. It's so easy to demonize these companies, which actually keep us safe. Part of so the military industrial complex has this role. It's the war profiteering and those who abuse that role that we have to actually point the finger at. So yeah, that's I thank you for that clarity on that for myself as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess
And
anything,
look, the other thing too is,
but
I guess I would just say I've also seen the narrative like, okay, this is like, we're here it is again, another long war, World War III. Certainly, we now are in a position where, because we've taken kinetic action against Iran, the next step is theirs. We don't know what it's going to be, and it could escalate. Yes, that's true. But like in my gut, I just don't see our president or our Secretary of Defense being oriented towards another long war. I don't see them motivated to try to put, quote, boots on the ground in Iran or any kind of, quote, nation building. You know, our generation, right? Pete Hegseth's generation, we already experienced that. We saw what it was like to lose two wars, really, to win a lot of battles, but to lose two wars because we didn't understand our adversaries. And so I don't see any credence to this narrative that we are willfully walking into another long war. I think it's exactly what President Trump and Pete Hegseth said, which is a precision strike on the nuclear capability and ballistic missile delivery systems to take away the Iranians' ability to do what they've warned us they want to do to us in Israel for years.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like you said, Pete Hegseth's, part of our generation that doesn't want to see that. And President Trump's, as a citizen, has always been outspoken against, anti-war, pretty much a libertarian on the war front. And he was the first president and we've seen in 20 years that didn't start a new war, that he actually ended them. But his ending of wars during his last administration, it was through some strong precision strikes, pretty much eliminating Al Qaeda off the battlefield. And so I believe that, I believe both of these guys are strength through peace through strength.
Peace through strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that as well. So,
well, look, and one last thing I'll mention, Chad. So our team, look, it's just such a privilege to have an awesome team at the Center for Security Policy. And we have experts that are far smarter than I am about Iran, about the Middle East. One of them, Dr. Dave Wormser, is actually someone I think we should have on your program, on your show. And this is a man that predicted the collapse of Syria a week before it happened, right? And so I don't want to talk about exactly where he is right now in the Middle East, but he's in a position where, moving forward, if you want to call on people far smarter than me, I've got a lot of awesome team members, and your listeners, your viewers can keep up with them at the Center for Policy.org. We have a weekly brief you can sign up for. You'll get our articles. You'll see the different focus areas that we're covering down on. And then you should also know that we have a lot of solutions, again, at the state and local level. We can help your state divest itself of the types of investments that would empower countries like Iran, China, North Korea, Russia, and help you protect the infrastructures of your state. So I would just ask for your viewers and listeners to pay close attention to the Center for Security Policy. And I would thank you, Chad, for being willing to serve on our board of directors. Right, it's a big deal it's a privilege and an honor for us that you'd be willing to take your time and energy and serve on our board. So thank you for that.
well, it's an honor to do it. And I mean, speaking of state level, I know you just had a big win in Texas, on policy in Texas as well for the CFP. So yeah, I hope people
Yeah,
listen.
absolutely, for the grid.
Yeah, for the grid, that power grid there, and yeah, let's schedule some of the guys from the CSP to come on and talk further. We've talked about it for a little bit, but we've got to make it happen. And so, man, thanks for everything.
Yeah, look,
And
I guess the last point I'll make too, Chad, we probably should have said it up front, is that the Center for Security Policy, we don't take government funding. We don't take funding from any foreign sources, and we don't take any funding from any of the companies that could profit off of any recommendations we make, right? So if we're protecting the grid, companies that can protect the grid, we don't take their money, right? So you're talking about a nonprofit that exists purely for the public interest, to look out for the American people. We provide that uncompromised analysis and unconventional solutions to keep Americans safer. And the only way we can do it is when people step up and donate to our nonprofit. And so we appreciate, Chad, the fact that you've consistently helped share that message with a broader audience of American patriots that can help us out. And so I'm not bashful about asking for help. And so if you appreciate uncompromised analysis, please do help us.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a 501(c)(3). So anybody that wants to donate to the CSP, you just go on the website and donate directly there.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
appreciate you, man. And we'll get this blasted
Absolutely.
out. And hopefully it brings some awareness, informs people, they can make better decisions and just be, have a little bit of peace of mind, understanding these things a little bit better and having a resource for the CSP. And again, for those listening, we're gonna get some of the other CSP members on the Resilient Show to dig further into this. But I just want to give some kind of a perspective from someone I knew that could speak into this better than myself, and that's why we did this today. So I hope that's informative to you guys. Appreciate all of our listeners, and if you're not already, like, subscribe, share this. Let's get it out there. Love to hear your comments, and also check out our Patreon and join our Patreon family to get more content that we have behind the scenes like this as well. So God bless you guys.